Stepmom life can be really overwhelming, and there are a lot of times that you probably feel very alone. Well, guess what? It is totally okay to ask for help. In fact, you should. And today, we're going to talk about how. I'm Cameron. I spent years building my career and creating a life I loved. And when my Prince Charming finally showed up, he had 4 kids in tow. Fast forward through lots of mistakes made and lessons learned, step family life was much more complicated than I realized. If you're looking for help with blended family life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, where we keep it real as we dish about all the things. This is your weekly dose of blended family inspiration and encouragement. You're not the wicked stepmother, so let me help you find your fairy tale ending. Come on, let's do this. So you've made it through Mother's Day and Stepmother's Day, and now you may be dealing with that slow crawl to the end of the school year, what to do with the kids over the summer now that, things are starting to open back up, custody issues, other high conflict issues, or any number of things that can really be hard to figure out. Stepmom life can be overwhelming. And if you have anxiety or depression, whether diagnosed or not, it can exacerbate both. It has been well documented that stepmoms have it harder than stepdads, and that we experience more depression than biological moms. Believe it or not, it is true. So, as stepmoms, we've got it rough sometimes. But we are not all about sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves, are we? We are not about going down the stepmom rabbit hole with all the ways that we feel excluded, disliked, or ignored, right? We are about grabbing the bull by the horns and helping ourselves. And if there's one thing I want you to take from today's episode, it's that. Every stepmom situation is completely unique. Every stepmom has her own challenges. No 2 stepmoms are facing the same situation. However, every single stepmom has the power to take control of her situation. Let me repeat that for a second. Every stepmom has the power to take control of her situation. So, what do I mean by that? I don't necessarily mean that you can control all the things. And if you listened to last week's podcast, I discussed that. And, sometimes control is not the best thing for your situation. And if you didn't listen to last week's podcast, you can check it out over at thiscustomlife.com/episode 18. But what I mean in terms of you have the power to take control of your situation is that you can control how you react and how you handle all the things, right? So, for example, if you get into a pickle with the ex and you don't know how to deal with it, you have control over your reaction, and you have the power to look for the answers when you don't have them, to look for help. And there are a growing number of options out there for you. When I became a stepmom, I totally believed the hype about an instant family. And you've probably heard me talk about how I thought we were going to be one big, happy, blended family. I had ordered monogrammed Easter baskets and Christmas stockings. Well, I've told you before, I got a big wake-up call pretty quick that our reality was not quite so simple, and I had no clue where to find resources. And frankly, when I became a stepmom, there wasn't that much out there. There were a few books, and trust me, I bought them all. I'm type A, let's be serious. But there weren't many websites, and there really wasn't much of anything else. But I decided pretty quickly that I needed help, and I needed advice. And so, did I turn the lights off, curl up in bed, and wish all of these issues away? I sure wanted to. But no, I took the few resources I could find. I did a lot of talking with my therapist, and I figured out what was going to work for me. And that's what I want you to do. That is my ask of you today, is I want you to spend the time to get yourself help. I always talk about the fact that you are not in this alone, and it's true, you're not. There are resources out there for you. But you do need to do the work and spend the time to find the quality resources and the tools that will help you. It is okay to ask for help. It's also okay to admit you don't have all the answers. And as much as I would like to think that I've got a lot of answers, and I've been doing this stepmom coach thing for a little while now, I don't have all the answers. I know there's this myth out there about the instant family and the instant parent and all that stuff. But let's be clear, even biological parents need help. There is no way that you're going to take on this role and immediately have all the answers. There is absolutely a chance that you're going to feel alone and helpless, and you're going to have a lot of questions. So if you feel alone, if you need help, if you have questions, ask for help, okay? Ask for help. So who do you ask? Where do you go? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about where you can find good and reliable stepmom help. Now let's be clear. There are not nearly as many tools out there to help stepmoms as there are for biological parents. But that being said, there are some truly great resources out there. So I'm going to give you a few different categories of stepmom help that you can seek out and how to find the good resources. And I'm also going to place all of this stuff in the show notes for this episode. So just go to thiscustomlife.com/episode 19. And all the resources that I talk about today will be there. Okay, so the first place that is really helpful for you to seek out, advice and guidance is from your friends, from your family, and from other stepmoms. No one truly understands your struggles like another stepmom. I don't know about you, but I feel like every time I meet another stepmom, we exchange kind of a knowing look. And let's face it, there's not a secret handshake for our little stepmom sisterhood, but I really think there should be. So when you find some stepmamas, be open to developing friendships with them. You might find that even if they're going through something totally different than you are, their experiences are likely to help you, and you might find that you can help them too. Where to meet them? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Also, use your friends and family. They're not going to fully understand your struggle all the time, but they do love you and they do want the best for you, which means they'll listen to you. They'll offer advice as best they can with the experiences that they have. And you'll probably find that they've got some really good advice and really want to help you. So next, I want you to look for some really good books and some good workbooks. Now, we've talked about the fact that there just isn't as much out there for stepmoms as there is for biological moms, but you can do some searches on Amazon to look for what's out there. Now, as someone who has bought a lot of stepmom books and have had some buyer's remorse when some of them have arrived in the mail, do the work up front to see if the book will actually be helpful to you. I want you to look at the reviews. I want you to read the excerpts. Look at the author, see if their bio is someone that you can identify with. Amazon has a little look inside feature. Do that and go through the table of contents. See if it is a substantive book that is actually going to speak to what you need. I have done a lot of research on the books that are out there, and I've curated a list of the ones that I have found helpful. They are on my website. I'll link to it in the show notes, but you can visit thiscustomlife.com/shop to access the books that I have found helpful. I'll mention a couple here, but there really are too many to go into. So if you head over to the site, you can take a look at the ones that I have found really helpful. So the first one I'll mention is if you're dealing with a high conflict situation, anything by Bill Eddy. He is a lawyer, but also has a degree in social work, and he started the High Conflict Institute, which is based out in California. He wrote a book called It's Your Fault, which has got a ton of tips on dealing with high conflict and narcissistic personalities. And, that's something that I hear from a lot of stepmoms about, is when their partner's ex is high conflict or when the relationship is high conflict. He's got some amazing tips for how to deal with high conflict personalities and how to refocus, things from the conflict to the issue at hand and deal with things in kind of a more business-like manner. The other set of books that I always recommend to people are the Love Language series books by Gary Chapman. And you may have heard of the 5 love languages. I won't go into them here. I've talked about them on other podcast episodes, but it's a really great tool for learning how to communicate with other people. And he's got the 5 love languages for your relationship. He's got one for dealing with teens and one for dealing with blended families. He's got a book for dealing with different personalities in the workplace. And, at the end of the day, so much of what goes on in a blended family, and honestly in any family really, boils down to communication. I have found his love languages and, how to speak to the people in your life to be really helpful in terms of improving communication so you can deal with some of the bigger issues, right? I'll also mention a book called Skirts at War. This was written by Jennifer Newcomb Marine and Jenna Korf. And Jenna happens to be a mentor of mine, so I may be a little bit biased, but it is a great book in terms of moving past the divorced mom and stepmom conflict. So, and I know that they are actually working on a new edition, I believe. So I encourage you to check that one out as well. And then the last one I'll mention is there are some good workbooks out there. One of the ones that I have thought was really helpful is the Co-Parenting Toolkit. And it's actually a supplement to a book called Mom's House, Dad's House, which is a guidebook for dealing with a lot of common co-parenting issues. So that's by Isolina Ricci. So those are a few of the books that I have found helpful. Again, I've got more on the website, but I would encourage you to do your own research, look at what I've recommended, but also, do some of your own research and, see what you can find and see what will work best for, what you're actually looking at. Hey stepmom, do you wish you could unlock the secret to handling all that blended family life throws at you? Let's be real, every family's different and has its own struggles. But if you give me 6 weeks, I will give you the tools you need to love your stepmom life. In just 6 weeks, I will help you learn to deal with your partner's ex with confidence, to understand your role as a stepmom, to learn what it is your stepchildren are really looking for and how to communicate with them, to know that you and your partner are on the same page, and to reduce your daily stress and reclaim time for yourself. The Blended Family Formula is a one-of-a-kind course just for stepmoms, designed to help you learn the skills and the strategies to confidently tackle all of your stepmom challenges. You deserve to live out your purpose as a stepmom, and the people who depend on you deserve to get you at your best. If you are a stepmom wondering how to overcome the overwhelm as you feel like you're failing just a little bit at everything, or if you feel guilty for wanting more, this is an opportunity that I promise you will not want to miss. Head over to thiscustomlife.com/BFF to get on the waitlist now. Moving on from books, let's talk about all of the resources that are available to you online, and there are a lot. The hard thing is finding sources online that you can really trust, right? And so the same thing that I was talking about in terms of the books applies online too. When you're doing research and finding out, finding some sources that you want to listen to, really look at their credentials and dig in before you go all in on somebody that you found in a Google search. Now, how do you find some of these online resources? And how do you figure out whether they actually know what they're talking about, right? Well, you can look on social media, explore some stepmom related hashtags and look at some of the accounts that come up. See if the people resonate with you. See if you feel like they're talking to you. Find the people that you like and follow them, follow their blogs and look at who they recommend, right? The other thing you can do is get on Facebook and look for some Facebook groups or other online forums. Now, I run the Stepmom Diaries, which is a private stepmoms only Facebook group. It's been a great place for the stepmoms there to meet and interact with other stepmoms. We have some really interesting conversations, and stepmoms in the group will always pitch in and help answer questions when somebody's got a problem or something going on. If you're interested in that group, I'll put a link in the show notes. But, there are other groups as well. If you feel like that's not the right fit for you, I just encourage you to, find a group and, join in, especially if you don't have other stepmoms in your life. Now, that being said, there are some groups out there that spend a lot of time airing stepmom grievances, either on their social media accounts or within their private stepmom group, or, complaining about the bio moms or whatever. If that's what you're looking for, the resources that I recommend here may not be for you. I follow and I work with stepmoms who want to help and who want to keep a very positive atmosphere, who provide real advice for blended families without the snark. Okay, sometimes maybe a little snark, but it's not the main focus. The focus is really on lifting stepmoms up and helping them deal with all their struggles, but, also to love their blended family life. So keeping it positive, right? So let's dig into a few websites. And again, I'm going to go through a lot here and I'm putting it all in the show notes. So, take a look there if you can't get all of this right now. Okay. I know this is a lot of information that I'm throwing at you. So, feel free to listen to this again if you need to get things down, but I will have everything for you in the show notes. So let's dig into some websites that I really have found helpful over the years. So these are in no particular order. These are just women that I think are great and really have provided some great stepmom services and advice. And they're all different. And again, you really need to just, find who speaks to you. So the first one is stepmomhelp.com. It's run by Jenna Korf, who is the author of Skirts at War and the creator of the Stepmoms app. And you guys probably know by now that I'm a coach and writer for the Stepmoms app. But Jenna's awesome. She has great advice. The next one is Stepmom Magazine. It is put out every month and it's an online magazine and it covers a wide variety of stepmom topics. I love their slogan, which is even when it's good, it's complicated. Brenda, their publisher, is great, has great advice and gets some really wonderful guest writers every month. I interviewed her here back in episode 13. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and take a listen and see what you think. I think you'll find that to be a great resource. The other online magazine that's out there is Step Parent Magazine, and they've got resources on a wide variety of topics and also provide, really wonderful guest writers and contributions. Full disclosure, I am a contributing writer for Step Parent Magazine and Stepmom Magazine, but I think I can say, very neutrally that they are both great sites with a lot of good advice. A few others that I recommend, stepmomming.com. Kristen Skiles runs that site, and I also interviewed her for the podcast way back in episode 5, and she gave us some great stepmom tips. TheInclusiveStepmom.com. Beth at The Inclusive Stepmom provides some amazing resources for LGBTQ stepmoms. I talked with her in episode 7 of the podcast about LGBTQ stepfamilies, but I will tell you her advice is spot on for every type of blended family. Naja Hall of VIP Stepmom and Blended in Black is just one of the Black blended family voices out there, but she's got a lot of really great spot on advice, and she's got a super fun social media account to follow if you want to look her up on Instagram. Claudette of the Stepmom Coach has been around for a long time and has some additional great resources for blended families, including her new book on boundaries, which I know is helpful for all of us. Allie Wilkes of Successful Step Coupling is author of the book Step Coupling, which is specifically for step couples. And she has got a ton of great tips on, being in a blended family. Krista at The Intuitive Stepmom takes a holistic approach and balances both the practical and the metaphysical in her coaching. I like to call it the woo-woo, but she's wonderful as well. And Marguerite Stein of Step Family Harmony also has a mindfulness meditation practice. And if you have not tried meditation, I'm just telling you, you should try hers. I offer one as a bonus to my students in my Blended Family Formula course, which will be opening up soon. And it is a great meditation. I'll have a link in the bio to that. I spoke with Marguerite back in episode 10. So if you didn't check that out, I would encourage you to go and do that now. And then last but not least, I definitely recommend Anita over at thestepfamilydynamics.com. She is great, has got some spot on advice on, parenting, step parenting, self-care, all the things. So again, I really encourage you to take a look at these links that I'll put up on the show notes. I think you'll find someone on this list who speaks to you. And almost all of the women who run these sites that I'm telling you about do stepmom coaching. And that's something that can be really, really beneficial. And so with that, I'll move on to the other way that you can get help as a stepmom, which is through coaching, right? You've probably heard of life coaches, but I don't know. Did you know that there are stepmom coaches? I sure did not know this was a thing when I became a stepmom, and I wish I had. Let's be clear. This is different from therapists, right? Stepmom coaches are not going to, or they shouldn't at least, provide you with a therapy type of conversations that, look at past events in your life and how they brought you to where you are and all that. But these are women who are trained and who can give you real-time advice and help you take practical steps towards solving your issues. So a few things to look for if you're looking for a stepmom coach. And again, I think most of the websites that I'll have in the show notes do provide some coaching. And it's really it's finding someone who you're compatible with, right? You want to make sure that you're looking for coaches that have some kind of certification. There are a lot of people online who set themselves out as life coaches or stepmom coaches or other kinds of coaches that don't really have the experience to back that up. So you want to just do your homework, okay? Make sure they're certified. Make sure they've got the credentials to back up what they're offering. I do offer stepmom coaching. I offer it mostly through my course, The Blended Family Formula for Stepmom Success. I take on a very limited number of one-on-one coaching clients. And if that's something you're interested in, you can feel free to shoot me an email at info@thiscustomlife.com. I'll put it in the show notes as well. But again, most of my coaching is through my course, which will open up in the next few weeks. But really, you'll be looking for someone who has the credentials, someone who you are compatible with, someone who you feel like really speaks to you. And, doing your homework on people, you can really figure that out. The other thing is, decide whether you want one-on-one coaching or group coaching. And there are advantages and disadvantages to both. I mean, obviously, one-on-one is great because you have the attention of your coach for your full session and a full hour, and you can really dig in and talk about things, but it is more expensive, right? It's a little bit cheaper sometimes to do the group coaching. And, I always really enjoy facilitating the group coaching sessions because I feel like the other stepmoms in the sessions, can bring their experience to bear, and that ends up being beneficial for everyone. So there really are pros and cons to both, but just figure out what you're most comfortable with. And then do the research and make sure that, whoever you're looking at hiring really does speak to you and your situation and that it really is a good fit. And the last thing I'll mention in terms of getting help as a stepmom is, you can think about therapy. If you want to go in a little deeper than, you would go with coaching. If you want to, dive into some of the things that may be causing you to react a certain way to certain things. I'm a huge fan of therapy. And in fact, I think at one point or another, my whole family has been in therapy at different times because we feel really strongly that taking care of our minds is just as important as taking care of our bodies. Now, I know, for a long time, there was a stigma around getting therapy. And, I know when my parents were going through a divorce, 30 something years ago, I'm dating myself here, it was unusual for kids to be in therapy. It was unusual for people to do therapy. And it had a little bit of a stigma. Like if you're in therapy, there must be something wrong with you. And I don't know about you, but I feel like there's much less of a stigma around therapy these days. And frankly, my opinion is even if there were to be a stigma around therapy, you got to do what you got to do. And if it's going to be beneficial to you, then you need to go in and talk to somebody, right? You've got to do what's best for you. And, on that note, asking for help is never easy. especially when it relates to your family, especially when it relates to your blended family. So I really hope I've given you a few suggestions today that you can use in order to ask for the help that you need, in order to get the help you need, and to think about some different options for how to get what you need as a stepmom. I know you're doing all you can. I know you've got a lot on your plate. I know you're doing great. I know you're doing a great job. But no matter how well things are going, we all need help and advice. And I am here to help you get it, however that looks like. So I am going to put all of this in the show notes so that you have access to all the resources that I talked about today. And again, you can find those show notes at thiscustomlife.com/episode 19. So that's what we've got for today. We'll see you next week. That's it for this week. If you've enjoyed our chat, I hope you'll help spread the word. Share this episode with friends and head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave me a review. And don't forget, for more great stepmom content, head on over to thiscustomlife.com and follow me on social media. Just search This Custom Life on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Until next time, you keep being you and know that we are in this together. See you here next week.